Hello, everybody, and welcome to this final session of the Education-Led Growth Summit. As you can see on the screen, we have a number of wonderful people joining us this afternoon. So what we're going to do here is we're going to introduce you to the folks who are on the call today and tell you a little bit about, we've started this program called the Intellum Growth Makers Awards. And so each person here on the call today has proven measurable business impact with their education program. So you've heard from some of them already today on the Education-Led Growth Summit webinars. You heard from Vikas last night on our Metrics That Matter Summit, or last month on our Metrics That Matter Summit. And so you may be familiar with some of these faces, but I think what each of them has done is something that we're all trying to do, right? Is we're trying to measure, improve the value of our education programs, the impact that we're having on our business. So we want to just take a moment to recognize them and all their hard work. And then we also want to ask them some questions, right? Because if they're in a place that a lot of us want to be, then what can we learn from them so that we can get there too? So that's how this final session will flow a little bit. Some housekeeping, if you haven't been on the calls yet, this is being recorded. So if you want to come back, if you have to drop off halfway through, all good. There is some stuff underneath the video here, so you can leave a rating, give us some feedback, let us know what you want to hear about. There's a place where you can ask questions. So we'd love to hear from you. We love hearing from you. So please, chime in as we're going. But I'll let my colleague Audrey here talk about the Growth Makers Awards in general, and then we'll introduce our award winners.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So yes, like Shannon mentioned, we are very excited to present these awards and so excited that you all are able to join us in real time to accept these awards. So if we could jump to these screens, we've categorized these into 4 categories, and then we have an overall education-led growth winner. But to kick us off, I want to announce the winner of our growth award. So when we're talking about growth, we were looking at revenue growth, product activations, and active user engagement. And our award winner is Meta Blueprint. So Vikas is here to receive this award on behalf of the Meta Blueprint team. And they've made a huge impact on product adoption, incremental revenue, and churn reduction, with growth targets increasing year over year. And it's an incredible example of their continued investment. So thank you, Vikas, for being here. I'm excited to, at the end of this, ask you a few questions regarding what you would share and the tidbits you'd share with the folks who are on the call. So round of applause to you and your team.
Thank you.
All righty. Next, we have our Growth Maker Award for the category of retention. So again, here on the screen, you'll see we were looking at decreased churn, improved sentiment, and increased product adoption. So that is going to Kinesso, and we have Sean and Trevor on the call to receive that award. So as you see there, they've seen incredible increase in the number of user certifications and a huge decrease or reduction in time to value. So that's incredible work, and we're excited to be honoring you with that award today as well. Next up, we have Muse, and Liam was a presenter earlier in today's summit session. So thank you again, Liam, for jumping on with us. So this is our award winner for performance. And again, here we're looking at improved time to value, increased goal attainment, and enhanced skill proficiency. And so what they're seeing there is quicker onboarding and less support tickets, which is huge. So congratulations to you, Liam, and your team. And thank you again for joining us earlier for your session where you shared a ton of insight into how you've created the success that you have. And next, we have our winner in cost reduction, and that's going to Allied Universal. So Libby is here on the call representing that team, and we had the opportunity to hear earlier from Brent O'Brien, who shared a lot about the cost savings and employee retention successes that they've had as an organization building their Edge Academy. So that was awesome to hear, and congratulations, Libby, to you and the team. And last but not least, we have our overall winner, which was a category created with Click in mind because of the incredible work that they've shown in each of those 4 categories. So, Greg, congratulations to you, and thank you for joining us in the previous session there as the overall leader in education-led growth. And I know you shared a ton of insight in our Q&A session that we just had, and you will do so again now. So we took a breeze through those, but that's to now turn the attention over to you all as we ask a number of questions. And so we can do a round robin if you just want to raise your hand and share an answer to one of these questions. But Shannon and I will go back and forth and ask a few questions. We'd love for each of you to respond to each of the questions that we're asking if you so wish. So to kick us off, we'll ask the question of what was instrumental to ensuring you could provide business impact with your education initiatives? And if no one, Sean, there we go. Kick us off.
Okay, well, thank you for the recognition. First off, it's really an honor. What was instrumental? I think one element in our case was measurement. So being able to tie our enablement initiatives directly to their outcomes and having the measurement and analytics in place to do that was pretty instrumental. Without it, I think we would have been in the dark in a little, sort of in a way. And so being able to directly measure was definitely instrumental for us.
I'm happy to go next, Audrey.
Beautiful.
Hey, so first of all, thank you, Intellum, for the recognition. It means a lot to me and to my team. I guess, for me, the answer is twofold. What was instrumental to prove the business impact of our education initiatives? The first one was a bit of a forcing function because at Meta, everyone is expected to show business impact. So, that was the easy one. I guess the second one was the inherent motivation that the team had, because it gives you a lot of meaning to the work that you do every day, to be able to show that, not only did you educate a bunch of people, but it did have business impact. That was more of an inherent motivation for my team, and that combined with the fact that we are required to, made it like an easy recipe for us.
I can chime in with something that was really relevant for us. And again, thank you for the recognition as well. And huge shout out to my team, because really this is a reflection of how awesome and amazing they are. But one of the biggest things for us to be able to sell training, we have to differentiate ourselves from all the shadow training that is out there, people going to YouTube or any other various sources of free, unvetted information. And being able to develop a learning subscription that allows us to bring hands-on lab experiences directly into the platform is the huge differentiator. And that's where we can really provide a ton of value, because we deal with a lot of technical personas, developers and data architects. And without the ability to get your hands on the technology and build something, it's just not as valuable.
Liam or Libby, anything to add before we move on to our next question?
I'll add something, and like everyone else, thank you so much for this award. We were very excited to see that we won, and it is a team effort. All hands on deck when it comes to everything that we do. So thank you again for this honor. Very similar to what the first individual said about measuring, being able to measure those results. The other thing is just attaching it to a major company initiative. Anytime that you are able to attach, whether it's a thought, an idea, a project, a program, to something that's important to the entire organization, starting from the top, I think that is a great way to be able to get those results that you're looking for. So that was very key and important in the process.
I guess I'll wrap up. I will say thank you for the award, but thank you, I think, to be fair, Greg said it well, but our team's phenomenal in Means University. So thank you to the team as well, because some of them are definitely on here and some of them definitely asked some hard questions in my session earlier. But I have nothing new to add. I would compound what Sean said, as Libby just did. Like, the measurement was a key thing, but the only comment that I was going to add, and Libby's just summarized my entire presentation from earlier in 15 seconds, was be smart with what you are measuring. If it's not important to the business, they don't care about it. And we talked in my session about NPS scores or engagement levels earlier. For a lot of businesses, it's going to be revenue, cost optimization, or risk aversion. You need to understand what's important to your business, and then, as Libby said, go from there and understand what you actually need to measure.
So let me ask a follow-up question on that of getting the measurement in place, because I think theoretically a lot of people understand we should know what matters most to the business and we should be measuring our impact. But how do you actually measure, right? Like what instruments, what tools, how have you put systems in place to be able to track and measure and report on the things that you want to? So if you think about that and people who maybe are struggling with that, what advice would you have, or how did you go about getting that measurement and tracking in place?
Yeah, well, I guess I introduced that the topic of measurement, so I guess I'll start us off with this one. I mean, I think the first thing you need to ask yourself is how are the outcomes that you're aiming for already being measured, so that whatever's in place, you already have a path to tie in what you're doing and how you're contributing to it. So in our case, we have an analytics tool that measures product usage, engagements, and the like for our product suite. So our strategy was to just tie into that and best we could align what we're doing to what's already being measured. And so if it's about product adoption or growth, maybe look at your product analytics tool. If it's about leads, revenue, and there's a CRM or Salesforce or something in place and you can line up to that, I think that's what you need to do. In our case, we had something in place that already offered a first stepping stone. If that's not in place, maybe then you look at how you can measure what you're doing as well as the outcomes that you're looking for as well.
Yeah, and I think to add to that, Sean's probably downplaying the work that he did on the analytics side, I think. But while we did have something in place to measure on the product, it wasn't necessarily set up in the most optimal way. So Sean did a lot of work to get all of our product managers to really think about what value means in the actual product itself. So while we had the connection between Intellum and the product, it wouldn't have really been able to generate the stuff that we saw without the measurement being defined in the product as well. So that was something that Sean had an active hand in on our team.
Anyone else, something that was helpful in actually standing up the tracking component and being able to tie? I like that. Like, what is your company already able to measure? And that's probably a good thing to keep in mind is, are we actually able to measure this thing? Like, if we're going to say that we're going to move the needle on it, how are we measuring it? Can we actually measure that?
I can chime in really quick. Shannon, I shared this during the Metrics That Matter Summit, that at Meta, we are not allowed to grade our own homework. So we have a team of data scientists that we work with. And it's a true partnership with them, where we tell them what we designed the content for and what it was, what a particular initiative and offering a certification was supposed to do based on our design. Of course, there may be a desire to drive a particular business outcome, but if that's not what the content was designed for, that's not what you should be measuring. So we shared with them what we built the content for, and then they brought in their expertise in data science to build out the right kind of models for us to see if the program was doing what it was meant to do. So it was a true partnership between the two teams.
And I'm just going to plug watching the recording of Vikas' session if you missed it last month, because he talked more about that and how he actually did that partnership. Okay, next question. This is a big one for people. How did you initially secure executive buy-in? And then how have you maintained or grown that buy-in over time? So a lot of people, I feel like when you work in this industry, you're like, well, of course we would want to educate our customers. That just makes sense. But how did you go about, I know for some of you, you've been involved since the ground up. And then for some of you, it's proving that year over year impact and continuing to make the case to maintain and then also grow your programs.
I can chime in on that since I've had to do it twice now, for the original company I was at and then after acquisition. It goes back to something that a mentor of mine kind of told me early in my career, and that's whenever you're delivering any sort of message, right, try to think of the perspective of your audience. And I learned that when I was an instructor at the start of my career. And so when I'm delivering a message to the C-suite of decision makers in my company, I want to know what they're looking at that is going to move the needle in a positive way in our business. And so I tie everything I do and all of my messaging and all my strategies to those top level corporate objectives that they set. And if we're focusing on something that isn't going to directly impact that or doesn't have a clear relationship to that, then it's not going to resonate, and it's really kind of a waste of time. So I try to make sure that all of our resources are invested in ways that have a clear connection to those goals that the decision makers care about.
If I may agree 100%. That's so key, is right, as I said earlier, making sure that we're tying it into those company initiatives, those company goals. We were very lucky because the program that we launched actually came from the top. We are an organization that we focus on development, we focus on training, we focus on making sure that our employees are trained properly, developed constantly, and are first and foremost onboarded the right way, right? That they have all of the tools that they need so that when they do start working and they, after onboarding, that they feel comfortable and that they feel confident and they have all of the tools, the resources, they know what they're doing. So when our initiative came up, when this program came up, it started from the top because the need was recognized from the top that we need to make sure that when we are putting those new managers, those newly promoted employees onto whatever position, whatever role, that they have everything that they need. Very important. So yes, buy-in is absolutely necessary. It's absolutely needed. But again, we were very lucky because our leaders saw the need. Our leader saw the need, and he promotes it every chance that he gets. And one of the ways that we keep it growing is making sure that it stays relevant. Right. And we keep it relevant by pulling them in. So we make sure that every step of the way, when somebody completes the program and we're sending out congratulations emails, that they're included and they chime in and they're able to congratulate those employees as well. So making sure that we're keeping it relevant by pulling them into that process.
Libby, those are some great insights. If I may just add, really quick, for us, it was mostly a trust building exercise to get initial buy-in. And what really helped us was when we pitch anything new, I always go in with a plan that shows what is our intent to measure. The intent to measure plan is always up front. And then what really helps us keep that trust and growth over time is to actually follow up and on a regular cadence, send some pre-reads and say, here's how the program is doing, and then do a quick meeting to take questions. And the transparency that comes with, that kind of accountability where you go in and say, hey, we thought we would do X, Y, and Z, and it worked or mostly worked. And here are the things that didn't work and what we are doing. That, helps to build that trust over time. And but the initial part is mostly around the intent to measure.
Liam, I'm waiting for you because you had a big pitch on the education across the life cycle. What was something when you made that pitch, what were those things that you would keep in mind or would offer to other people as advice when they're making a similar pitch.
I was worried you were going to ask, Shannon, so I have my business case on the other screen right now. But for everybody else's context, Muse used a legacy learning tool up until December last year. And when I joined in September, Monica, who's in my team, had already done 80% of the work for the business case to move to Intellum and or another provider. And as we've just heard, a big part of this for us was to think about our entire customer lifecycle, as we talked about in my session earlier today. So there's a plug to go and see that session, because this does pertain really well back to it. And think about where could we add value across the entirety of the customer lifecycle, all the way from creating awareness and helping sales close deals, all the way through the customer success lifecycle, through to the customer becoming an advocate. I had two thoughts on the back of what Libby said. One was, when we did our business case, V1 business case was to be cost equilibrium. So like, we knew how much it was going to cost us to go for Intellum over the course of 3 years. How could we actually make that a no-brainer for the business? And then that was actually fairly easy because of the impact that we have on support tickets and the cost of support tickets to our business. But V2, the next level, was to actually make it cost negative. And we did that with a couple of elements regarding revenue generation as well. And I think we've heard this a couple of times already. And I'm pretty sure everybody that's on screen right now, given the awards that have been allocated, it's second nature. This like playback from the business's mission critical priorities back to what we're doing in the education realm. But for those of you that is not ingrained in what you do, that's honestly the biggest part of it. If you build a business case for X $1,000 and it just doesn't hark back to what the business is trying to drive for, you're going to be on the back foot straight away. So aligning it back to that and showing how you do contribute to those top 3 or 5 things is the foundation for the rest of it.
Trevor, Sean, anything that you would add?
I think for us, I think it was tough to get buy-in. I think there was a number of reasons for it. One of them was our business changed direction between when we initially began implementing Intellum, and rolling everything out to today. So what we initially started off doing is not necessarily what we're doing today. But one of the things that both Sean and I did was to approach education on our platform, which is effectively an internal product. And what we wanted to do is to position it as if it was an external product. So we wanted the quality of our work to be exactly the same as if our people do go and do Meta's Blueprint training and other ad platforms and things like that. So we wanted the experience, the quality to be exactly the same as when you go to one of these partners. And we wanted to really elevate it to just beyond an internal platform. And that was one of the reasons we decided to go with a completely separate learning management system to what we currently use for our talent development initiatives as well. So so there was the initial conversation and positioning and things like that, and then there was the repositioning and the second conversations that we had to have around what we're trying to do, what we're trying to measure, and how we're going to do it as well. So it's been a journey, definitely.
Yeah, and I think the only piece that I will add to that is that in sort of transitioning from a customer education program to a slightly more internally focused education program, in addition to wanting to maintain a certain standard and level of quality for everything that we do, I don't think we could come up with a good reason why we wouldn't educate our internal workforce in the same way that we do clients and customers. I would never want to see our business be in a place where our customers know more about us than we do. We should know as much and probably more. So having that customer focused lens and applying it internally, it benefited everybody. I wouldn't have ever seen a reason why we would abandon the customer education focus, because in the end, the that the better our internal stakeholders understand our clientele, the better they can support them. So it was that was another justification for it, I think.
So I heard know what matters to your executive team. And if you don't know, probably ask. Ask like an executive friend or see if you can get board notes. Involve people in the process, right? Like who doesn't want to have some kind of say in how things develop, starting with that intent to measure. But I like, Vikas, you mentioned trust. And I think a huge part of building trust is doing what you said you would do. And so you were talking about not just measuring, but communicating back like, hey, we said we were going to measure this, and here's the progress update. We said we're going to measure this, and here's the progress update. And like continuing to relay that back to the business, building trust, because it's not like you make a business case, you get one formal presentation, but you're actually regularly kind of having this conversation. Like Liam, you said, making it a no-brainer, right? How do we like do the math for the business so we can say, okay, at the very least, we're going to break even, but I think we can do better than that. And here's how we would do that. So we're actually like doing that mental math. I heard it's a journey, right? So we're not just making the case once, but we're making it on an ongoing basis, and we're pivoting as the business pivots, and we're not just like resting on our laurels, but pursuing the next thing. And Libby, I know your team has been pursuing the next thing for a long time, which I mean is so impressive, just like the constant innovation and the growth of your program over time, and even how the impact has grown over time, like scaled impact just because of the innovation there. And then I feel like the final thing I heard was not just showing the impact, but like thinking about the inverse. What would happen if we didn't have this? Or what does it say if we don't have this? And thinking about that inverse as well. And instead of just like, how do we prove that ROI? Okay, we have one more question. Audrey, I'll let you ask the question.
Amazing. This one's fun. So for all of those folks who have tuned into the call to hear from you all, what advice would you give other education leaders who are looking to prove the value or the impact of their education initiatives to their executive leadership team?
I guess I can go first if that's okay. You know, one thing that might help is if you listen close to the language that they speak when they are talking about what's really important to them and the kind of problems they want to solve, and speaking to them in that language. It may not come very naturally at first, but I heard a good friend of mine, David Leeser, say this very recently on LinkedIn. What's top of mind for them is their Monday morning problem. It's not about how many people you have trained, how many people you have reached. So if you can speak to them in a language that they understand and that matters to them, that goes a very, very long way.
I think what I would say, it kind of builds on what you're getting at there, Vikas, and that is align education with the strategy, right? Don't make it just a function that checks the box on an RFP. It has to have real value and be connected to the things that are driving the business forward. In my case, that was a good example. That is like the initiative of delivering learning in the product experience, because the serious business issue we're working to improve on is adoption rate. And if you're not successful there, that's a major, major problem. So that takes learning and exposes it in a whole new different set of what value it brings.
Agree 100%. That tying it to the strategic initiatives, those goals, those objectives. The other thing I was going to say is then always trying to improve on what you've created initially, making it better. But to make it better, you need to understand what needs to change, what needs to be improved. So soliciting feedback, I think, is always a great way of doing that. We've sent out surveys a few times, and I think that really helps the program to be able to stay fresh, to keep people engaged, and to just make it more interesting so that we have more buy-in. So I think always looking for ways to improve on what you currently have, I think is a great way to not. So the first thing is tying it to that initiative, and then also improving on it and soliciting that feedback to improve.
Yeah, I love that, Libby, and I think that's one of the things that was really important to us, because we have that measurement in place, and for this particular initiative, it was positive, but it may not be, and we may not see the exact results that we wanted to, and that's a chance for us to go in and look at it closer and figure out what's happened. We've produced content, for example, in a way that we think works well for the learner, and based on all of our experience and what we know about our product, but it could mean that people are using it slightly differently, and we can see metrics on certain modules and things like that, and we can go in and optimize. And that's I think something that's going to be coming after this now, is for us to just continuously iterate our content and make it much better. But having those defined actions has allowed us to to actually do this, and to be able to see things like the difference in time spent versus trained and untrained users and things like that. So it's good to see now, but what we can do with it now is to make things better, and that's what I'm quite excited about.
Liam, anything to add?
Something has come to mind, but it's going to come back to the previous question as much as the most recent one, and it's a bit of a slogan. Somebody said a lot when I was at Gartner. Think about the cost of doing nothing, is what this individual used to say a lot. And I think we're hearing from a group of people who are all doers, and they get stuff done. But whether it's the business case or whether it's proving out the value, per the most recent question, we always think about, we've done X, the outcome is Z, but also reframe that in your own head. If you were not there, if your team was not there, if the initiatives were not there, what would the impact of that be? Because I don't think businesses realize sometimes that without customer, partner, employee education, what the repercussions might be. And I'll give a non-news orientated one from years and years ago. We were able to showcase for employee learning, the time to value of someone joining the business was reduced from about 11 months down to about 4 to 5. And the impact that would have was tenfold in terms of growing their customer base, in terms of NPS of their customers. It was just massive. And again, back to the slogan, the cost of doing nothing is sometimes something that you should also lean on. It's scary. And back to the previous question, maybe it's something to consider as part of the business case as well.
I've heard that we usually think about ROI, but the COI, the cost of inaction, of what would happen if we didn't do anything. Awesome, cool. I've taken a lot of notes, and don't worry, fam, it's going to be on the Intellum blog soon. But this has been awesome. I feel like I could spend. We've been here for 34 minutes, but I could spend 34 minutes just like singing each of your praises. I've been so impressed, learning about each of your programs, learning about what you have accomplished and where you're headed, and everything that you've done along the way. And so I just again, applaud you all for the incredible work, the impact that you're making, also just being here and sharing with other people, right? So for folks on the call, these are amazing people who have been in this industry for a while and founts of knowledge. So I think it's okay if you reach out to them online. If you reach out on LinkedIn, they're all very friendly, very knowledgeable people. But thank you all for sharing your advice, your experience. I think we do learn so much from people who have gone ahead of us and who are doing the thing now that we hope to be doing soon in the future. So thank you for sharing your lessons learned and your hard-won advice. And thank you and congratulations again. And thank you everybody who tuned in today. This has been a lot of fun. We've learned a lot, and hopefully you've learned a lot too. And then you've taken some things that you can go back to your team, and you've gotten some ideas of how do we track, how do we measure, how do we communicate, not just prove the value on paper, but how do we have this conversation with our leadership team when they speak a different language, right? We need to do this like translation of, sometimes we're in the work doing the thing, and then we have to go then translate up to the rest of the business of what are those things, the words that are coming out of their mouth and the things that they're thinking about on Monday morning. So I've learned a lot today. I hope you all have too, but thank you for tuning in, and thank you to all of our speakers and presenters today, all of our award winners here. It's been great, but we'll let you all go, and have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you next month.
Thanks, everyone.
all.
Bye.
Bye.